how can someone plan for prevention, so to speak?
Yeah, you could simply go through your track within a show and seeing the physical things that are required of you. For instance, I was training one of the Aladdins. They're wearing sandals. They're jumping on and off of a set piece numerous times. We did a lot of ankle stability, a lot of single leg work, a lot of uh, being on a box, jumping down to the floor, but landing on one foot instead of two, just working on stabilization of the ankle because we knew that doing this 8 times a week, some shady situations are bound to come up.
Right.
And that's when you need to be ready for them.
First off, everyone needs to listen to your podcast. I think you guys are probably my most favorite industry podcast out there because you guys really teach actors how to actually be entrepreneurs, how to actually market themselves. So I also do feel like every actor should think of themselves as a business person.
Hey guys, really happy to have Joe Rosko on the show of Built for the Stage, which is a very successful personal training company. I think primarily based in New York, but Joe has clients all over the world, including London. He began his professional career as a trainer and actor at the exact same time. Since then, it has been his mission to build a bridge between the worlds of fitness and theater. Rosko believes that actors were truly professional athletes, but he didn't feel as though the theater community was equipped with the proper resources to train like said athletes. This realization led to the creation of Built for the Stage. In the past 6 years, Built for the Stage has had clients represented in over 50 Broadway shows and other stages across the globe while training on his fitness app. Rosko and his coaches pride themselves in having the unique abilities to continue a performer's fitness programs, whether they're in or out of a show. All professional athletes train a certain way while in season or out of season. And with actors, it's no different. Actors are athletes, and thus they should train like athletes. Before we get started with today's episode, I just want to ask you to like, subscribe, and hit that notification bell if you're watching on YouTube, or be sure to follow us on your favorite podcast listening app. And if you're feeling extra generous, leave us a review on Apple Podcasts. We read them all, even the bad ones. Lastly, if you enjoy Creative Risk and want to dive deeper, consider joining our Patreon community. We offer 3 membership tiers starting at just $5 a month. As a member, you'll get early access to ad-free episodes, weekly motivational content, bonus full-length episodes, and much more, including a book club. But it's more than just content. You'll be part of a community dedicated to accountability and support, helping you stay motivated and inspired. So head over to patreon.com/Creative Risk Podcast and sign up today. All right, without further ado, let's get to Joe.
Well, so Mike, I think I told you this. Joe and I first met in Mike actually still. Wait, Joe, are you still in Astoria, right? You still live in Astoria?
No, I actually I don't have a residence at the moment.
Okay.
I was just in London for a year.
Oh,
And
wow.
yeah, and then I just got back here end of July, and like I said, I went to Miami to get some stuff out of storage. I'll be in New York City again, as I always am, but looks like I'll go back to London the middle of September. Just been doing some stuff for expanding the brand on the West End.
Amazing.
that's awesome, dude.
Well, I had no clue. I mean, I knew that I'd seen a few posts over in you in London, but I didn't realize that you were sort of low key setting up shop. You know, I'm a dual citizen. I was born in England. I've often thought about potentially going back there, although the pay is not amazing to be 100% in London.
Yeah, you're speaking about the theater industry, correct?
Yeah.
Yeah. It's a different world, Broadway versus West End, for sure. 100%. It's a different world.
Yeah. We're the kings of capitalism here in the United States. Everything's gonna be more expensive and more commercial. Well, Mike lives in Astoria, and what I was saying too was that Joe and I first met at CrossFit Queens, which was in Astoria. Mike's an avid member, and I'm just kidding. We're not gonna, Mike. We're not going to spend this entire episode making fun of how out of shape we are and talking.
Literally,
that's
it quickly devolved there to us making fat jokes about each other.
No, but I met Joe at CrossFit Queens, and we're going to talk about Built for the Stage which is the, let's call it a program that you've developed that I know has become widely popular. And I also did Built for the Stage. Joe's like, don't include yourself. Don't be my mascot. No. It was really helpful at the time. I was
Whoa, whoa.
but I loved it. But let's go back to the beginning, Joe. So you started out as a performer yourself. You were just saying that you were either staying with your old voice teacher or that yeah. So what was your journey like from performer to specifically a focus on fitness primarily, and was fitness always part of your world?
Yeah, so I played 3 sports growing up and started working out in the gym in 6th grade, which I think that's you're 10 or 11 years old. But I found theater in 7th grade and never stopped pursuing theater while doing sports. And then when it came to college, I could have done one or the other, but I had this thought, oh, I could perform forever, but if I went to school for sports, most likely it would just be done after 4 years. So went to school for theater, and then in 2014, after a gig, I was like, I'm going to take a little break, and really found myself diving back into fitness and sport. And that's when the beginning stages of Built for the Stage started to creep in.
And what did you see as a need in a macro sense for when you said that's when Built for the Stage started to creep in? Obviously, you understood both worlds. So what need did you see that was sort of lacking in your opinion?
Yeah. Well, from when I first got my personal training cert my freshman year of college when I was 18, I walked on the football team as well, and none of my football friends needed training, obviously, because we had our coaches, but my other group of friends were actors. So from a very young age, starting right out in college, those were the people I was training, actors. And once I got to the city and started luckily training a lot of actors who have done very well in the industry, I'll just say that, I was expecting maybe a next level of understanding or appreciation for fitness and what is needed to be at that level. But it wasn't the case. So I just saw a lot of actors taking random classes or just throwing together YouTube videos maybe that they saw, but definitely not training like the athlete that they were. And that's when I started to realize, hey, there's a major need here.
That's really interesting because personal training is such a it's one of those that goes along with like nannying and waiting tables. It's such an actor like side gig. And my question to kind of piggyback off this is like, when you started doing this, because this is we run a business on the, we encourage all artists to have secondary income streams, because we know how, even at the top level, how sort of unstable it is. For you, was it like, oh, you found something, you felt like that was like, oh, this is really my calling, this is where I can really be close to the industry while also providing value? Was it more from a practical standpoint from you? Like, what was the mindset? And because so many people who listen to this podcast, or a lot of actors, are starting businesses, they're trying to figure out how to start business. And so to the need, did it come from more of like this feels right, this feels aligned with sort of what I really value, my mission, or did it come from a more practical standpoint, and how has it changed, if at all?
Yeah, I think personal training is such a popular side gig for actors because, like waiting tables or nannying or whatnot, there is a flexibility to it, and a place to just kind of steer your own ship. For me, though, it had always been a part of me on a whole other level. It wasn't just something like, I'll pick this avenue just to make some money on the side. It was actually one of my main avenues, and it was a tough thing to navigate throughout my whole life because my identity as an athlete or an actor was very yeah, it was tough. I was always at a crossroads. So when this idea came about, it was a true like marriage of okay, this is the opportunity where I think I could put these together. Um, yeah, so it was an exciting choice and something that I found was why my life growing up might have been that way, you know, for the better, just like serving this specific niche.
Yeah, it's amazing that like you know, when people I was never really a gifted athlete. I played a little bit, but you know, people who really balance those two worlds, it is such a code switchy sort of thing, and it's really cool that you've taken these two passions and you've merged them into one. Uh, you know, to kind of get to the physical demands of Broadway specifically, what are the most common physical challenges that you think actors face on Broadway? You know, they have to do 8 shows a week. There's a lot when you're doing a musical. There's really demanding choreography, quick costume changes. Even, I mean, you know, but what do you think are some of the biggest physical challenges that actors in the theater, specifically on Broadway, face?
Yeah, I think it's the repetitive nature of, like you said, 8 shows a week, but also doing the exact same thing 8 times a week. There's not much variance when you're doing a track. So if your choreo is to kick that right leg 6 times, you're not going to do it 4 times tomorrow because you need a break. You're going to do it 6 times.
Right.
So the repetitive nature is something that I think the actors take for granted because they think, oh, I'm doing such a physical job. My training or working out isn't really necessary, when in fact it's all the more necessary because you have a ton of imbalances going on because of doing the same thing over and over again. I usually compare it to an NBA player, I guess, in a basketball season. They don't just stop working out in the middle of the season. You'll see them working out after a game or before it. The importance of keeping up with the body season is just as important as off season. For actors, a lot of posterior injuries to the backs typically, and knees due to just wear and tear from whether it's dancing, whether it's the footwear, whether it's the surface they're on. Same with the posterior as far as surface, a lot of rake stages or the heels, things of that nature. So to strengthen the areas around the knees, the back is important for an actor. And that's not just going to happen through stretching, taking dance, and just being quote unquote active. It's going to happen through very intentional preventative training.
Well, what's interesting?
Yeah, well,
oh, sorry, Joshua.
Well, just speak to that a little bit more about the preventative nature of this, because you're talking about some of the injuries that can occur. So how do you build a prevention plan? Is it, for example, is there like an ongoing one that you of things that you can generally hit? But then let's say, oh, I'm casting Moulin Rouge tomorrow, right? And now it's like, how do I get ahead? I'll give you a super micro example. One of the things when I first met you, Joe, when I first joined Les Mis, you wouldn't think, oh, that's going to be that challenging. I was killing myself on that barricade, and I didn't even realize how much pain I was in until I started going through it 8 times a week. And it was actually through the training at the CrossFit gym that I became much stronger and able to do that with no problem. But how can someone plan for prevention, so to speak?
Yeah, you could simply go through your track within a show and seeing the physical things that are required of you. For instance, I was training one of the Aladdins. They're wearing sandals. They're jumping on and off of a set piece numerous times. And also, I called it controlled chaos. The street rat scene is just unthinkable, what's going on. And every millisecond, you're like, well, if that didn't go exactly to plan, someone was just getting crashed into. But anyway, back to the Aladdin and sandals and jumping. We did a lot of ankle stability, a lot of single leg work, a lot of being on a box, jumping down to the floor, but landing on one foot instead of two, just working on stabilization of the ankle because we knew that doing this 8 times a week, some shady situations are bound to come up.
Right.
And that's when you need to be ready for them. Or if there's twisting involved, thinking about some specific shows choreo wise, you can do a lot of single leg kneeling presses where you're twisting the oblique. You could do a cross-legged deadlift where you're reaching across the body instead of just simply straight down to your side. There's numerous exercises for everything, and that's the exciting part of my job, is having the knowledge of giving that prescription to an actor as to what I think they should be doing.
Well, it's interesting about this because people talk about this in terms of, like many out of shape people. I have a fair amount of fitness knowledge. How come it's always like really out of shape people who just know? Like I could get my exercise certification tomorrow, but
the knowledge hurts us,
exactly,
Mike. That's what happens. It's just
exactly the knowledge takes care of it. I don't have to do any of it. But what's interesting is this conversation, because one thing you brought up with the repetition thing I thought was so fascinating is I didn't even think about that. It's, well, that's how injury happens, right? Repetition, because you're working a muscle over and over and over again. You're working a certain thing over, you don't have time to rest it. And you're also not working other muscles so you get, and so it's like this skill based versus like foundation thing, like even like using this, oh, let's look at the unique part of what your track is in the show. What track specific skills do we need to build, and let's work those. But then what's interesting too, and I hope we could talk about this too, is what are some of the, in the off season, or if you're doing, let's say, something where it's not a ton of everything's a physical demand when you're doing a show 8 times a week. If it's a play, I mainly do plays, and it's still very demanding. But what's sort of like the foundational stuff beyond some of the skill stuff that you feel like needs to be addressed so that you're, whatever, 6 weeks out or 3 weeks out or whatever it is, from sort of taking on a new, addressing the specific needs of a track? Where quote, should an actor always be in terms of physical readiness in your mind?
Yeah, as far as strength training goes, it's always going to be a squat, deadlift, and press, or also a push variation. So deadlift, because we always are picking something up off the ground in life.
Right.
Press, we're always putting something over our head. And squat, we're always sitting down and standing up. So as dumbed down as that seems, that is the nature of not just theater, but it's life. So those things are never going to go away. As far as you mentioning in season versus off season, it's really not a matter of swapping those things out or not doing them. It's just the intensity at which you're completing these movements. No different than running. You're not going to run a half marathon and then go do your evening show. You're going to run less miles, or you're not going to do a sprint at a 15 level. You might do your sprints that day at an 11 when you're in season. But yeah, those are the core movements as far as weight training goes: squat, press, and deadlift. And then, when you're into a track, that's when you could start adding other specific movements to your program. Not that you wouldn't anyways, because variance is important, but I'm just saying, once you get that knowledge of what you're required to do, then you can really start sprinkling in some different nuances.
It makes sense, because I'll speak for me. My big problem is that when I'm in a show is when I'm like, oh shit, I gotta tighten up a bit here. Actually a lot of times where I'm like, oh shit, gotta get to the gym. And well, and what's so fascinating about that is, when you're in rehearsal and tech and performances, it's hard. And so like, it's interesting to hear you say, like, yes, of course those things don't go away, but you should actually probably, you need to adjust based on the show. I'm curious about this because what you're mainly talking about is strength training right now, which is, I think is, the strength is the foundation of, so many things, what else in addition in terms of foundation building do you, so if somebody's doing 3 lifts a week, whatever, they're doing the 3 lifts a week or whatever it is, 3 times a week, or whatever it ends up being, is that kind of, where does cardio, quote cardio, come into play here, stretching, flexibility, in terms of just staying consistent with that?
Yeah, we have a yoga program built into our training program at Built for the Stage as well. So flexibility, stretching is definitely no stranger or thing to be put off as far as performers go, especially dancers, but really across the board. If you can get into a position comfortably, you're less likely to experience injury. The more difficult it is, or the more foreign it is to be in a certain position, the more likely injury is going to happen. So that's what usually happens to people on stage with injuries, is that even though their track is repetitive, sometimes things are just slightly different, or there's this sudden movement you had to do to make an adjustment, and then, boom, there's your back, or boom, you tweaked your knee, whatever, so on and so forth. So yeah, the flexibility, mobility is definitely important and something that we focus on. As far as cardio goes, you can do one short, meaning one like sprint interval workout a week, one mid-range, and one longer conditioning piece. You can consider this to be running. You can consider it to be circuit training, bike, whatever is elevating the heart rate. Typically for an actor, like in a show, you want to stay within a 120 to 150 beats per minute range. Getting above that is going to tax our nervous system to what I would call like a game time experience level of exertion, where maybe we want to be saving that for our performances. So as far as cardio goes, yes, it's important. Yes, it's also important, again, to vary how you're being challenged on the stage, because like you can get used to a certain number and just get into quote unquote number shape for that dance or whatever you're doing.
Yeah.
But be asked to do something different, and then all of a sudden you don't feel as in shape as you thought you were.
This is a great point. And if I may, not that this is all about just promoting Built for the Stage, but it makes sense why Built for the Stage is so successful, Joe, because the considerations of, one might think, oh, I'm just going to push myself as hard as I possibly can. But that might have residual negative effects on your ability to maintain doing 8 shows a week, which kind of brings me to a question. What are some common mistakes that actors make when it comes to fitness, and how can they be avoided, do you think?
Yeah, going back to what Mike was talking about, as far as like, oh, I have a show now, I need to start trying to get ready. So what I would say that one of the biggest things that actors make mistake wise is, I'm not in a show, so maybe now's the time I'll work out. I usually get it this way. I'm not in a show, so I'm going to work out. But the second I book a show, I'm not going to work out because it's going to tire me out, and et cetera, et cetera. But there is the case that Mike brought up as well. And I would just say to everyone, if you stay ready, you don't have to get ready. And what deters actors a lot of the time, or dampens their spirits, is that, okay, I booked this show, it's time to work out, it's time to get ready. I haven't been doing that, so I'm tired, my body hurts. Then I'm starting the show, this is seemingly impossible, and now I have this presumption that, oh, I can't work out while I'm in a show, it's too much. When really you haven't prepared yourself physically in general. Then you're going to try to prepare yourself physically while doing a extremely physically required new show that you also haven't been doing. So now you just put 2 servings onto your plate, when really you should have had one of those prepared in the first place.
It's funny because Mike and I have low-key this conversation nonstop. And what I want to be clear what I mean. it's and Mike, the conversation I'm talking about is like how we find a balance of consistency across any number of important factors of our lives
Sure.
at any given time, whether that's fitness, whether that's, you know, financials, whether that's marketing. It doesn't matter. It's like when, and we as artists, I think, have a tendency sometimes to go super hard. We're passionate, you know, we're like, okay, we go hard in one area and then we stop that and then we go hard in another area. And this is one great example that I think everyone sort of understands and knows, where consistency is going to be king or queen. Um, what role does nutrition play in maintaining energy levels and performance throughout a long run, and just maybe obviously in fitness in general?
Yeah, it's the foundation. It's everything. Nutrition's first. It's You can try to build the most amazing car that you can, but if you don't have gas in it, the car is not going to do much.
Yeah.
And if you don't have good gas in it, then it's not going to perform to what its actual potential is. So, yeah, vegetables, meats, nuts, fruit, good starches, plenty of water, and then picking and choosing when you're going to have sugar and alcohol, because those are your two biggest deterrents to performance and recovery. Those slow down both. So, yeah, I think what actors can do besides eating the right things is when they're eating these things. I think it's different for everyone, but a lot of the conversations I have is, how can I keep my energy up but not feel full or bloated or lethargic on stage because I'm eating too close to the curtain, or what should I eat, et cetera, et cetera. So that's when, before shows, is when I would want to have like a banana, like something carb based that processes quickly, that could be a good energy source, but not weigh you down heavily. Personally, for actors, I think it makes the most sense to have the majority of your food towards the middle to late portion of the day. There's people out there that say, oh, don't eat past whatever time, 8 o'clock, whatever BS. But that's really just a form of a late night fast. You're going to cut off your calorie intake at this time, and that's going to ensure that you're going to spend a longer amount of time having not eaten. But really, that's all that nighttime eating strategy is about. So for actors, I would say, don't hesitate from eating late, but just have it be the right stuff. You know, don't go to the pub and drink your calories or have, you know, an amazing huge dish of nachos, but save the majority of your calories for that evening show and after the show. And chances are, a lot of the actors, you're sleeping in the next day. This is in show schedule. Just speaking in. But yeah, if the brunt of your work comes towards the end of the day, that's when the intake should be, in my opinion.
That's always the hardest part, you know, for me is you know, when I do a show, my impulse is, you know, and also I have a very special relationship with food, as we all do, but it's like I'm emotionally drained at the end of it. I'm starving, right? Because I just did a 2 hour, you know, sometimes 2.5 hour thing. And that is, you know, I eat heavy at night. I eat heavy. And then I'm not really and then, you know, because I ate really heavy, I'm actually really not hungry for most of the next day. I'll maybe get one meal in before a show, like a little meal in. But per your point, I'm one of those people who's like, I don't want to be weighed down before I do a show. And then it's like a cycle of like, then that night I'll have something really heavy. And kind of what I hear you saying is, and I'm asking for me because I'm about to go into a show schedule soon. So it's like, it sounds like to me what's useful is going, okay, having probably a you know, not eating necessarily, you know, first thing in the morning per se, but early afternoon, having maybe your first meal and making sure it's, you know, well rounded. It's going to provide you energy. then before a show having, quick carbs that are not like heavy carbs, like a banana or maybe granola or something like that, or, something that'll sustain you through the show, and then making sure you have you can get calories in after the show, but making sure that it's not like it's not pub nachos, that's me. I'm pub nachos. That's my nickname on the street.
Yeah.
Is that somewhat accurate? What I'm saying?
Yeah, it's just always about being prepared, and also a schedule. If you can get the body in a rhythmic cycle,
Right.
that is going to be definitely advantageous to you. So like for you, maybe you wake up, you putter around, have coffee, go train, have your protein shake and some type of post carb. Maybe you have, I don't know, an apple, or maybe you have some Greek yogurt and fruit.
Yeah.
Then your show might be approaching within 3 or 4 hours. I would have that, maybe a small meal.
Yeah.
Maybe you can do 4-ounce chicken, some asparagus, and some rice. And then you have your show. And then you got to be prepared again. So it's not pub nachos. You have to know where you're going to go or what you're going to have. Yeah, and that's what it's all about.
Do you know what keeps coming up for me? That I just wrote this down. What seems to be behind all of this, and this is probably exactly why Built for the Stage really exists, is a plan. There's a plan. Like you just said, like, come post show, you have to know where you're going to go. So rather than going to the pub, so British of you, you're going to go someplace.
Yeah, sorry.
No, I love it. So I just want to say, ask, what role does it sounds like Built for the Stage takes an incredibly holistic approach to this. And in fact, I remember, Joe, when we were first working together many years ago, Built for the Stage, you sort of made it, at the time, there was a bit of access to message me on the app at the time that we were using if you have questions about, and you were checking in with my nutrition. So what role does nutrition play in the Built for the Stage program?
Yeah, typically everyone, well, first off, it's different for everyone. So I don't do a one catch-all system.
Yeah.
Nutrition is a very individual experience.
Yeah.
So I first ask people about how they're already approaching it, what their history is with it. And then if they're comfortable, I typically say, okay, would you mind logging 3 days of your nutrition? That way I can see what you already have going on. I'm not going to prescribe macros and calories and timing and blah, blah, blah if someone is submitting their food log as them having Taco Bell 3 times a day. I'm going to say, okay, let's start with the basics. We don't need to go head first into something advanced. And then vice versa, if they're doing a pretty good job, then I can meet them at a different level there. So yeah, it's as specific or intuitive or holistic as the person needs it to be. I have experience with any of that. And the messaging on the app is still going on. So weekly, I'm putting on clients' calendars, hit me up with your check-in. Yeah. What's going on? What do you need? And then, I'm having weekly conversations with different people on what seems to be happening. But to your point also, yes, it's always about a plan. Everything, whether it's business, fitness, anything, like, unless it's improv, you're not walking up on the stage with no plan. You have blocking. You have the notes you're supposed to sing. You have the choreo. You have your quick change, where it's going to be, what glove you're going to take off first, what shoes next, blah, blah, blah. Right. And that's the same with fitness. Like, so your feelings when you have a plan are a lot less powerful, because the days you don't feel like it, which is a lot of the time, it's the plan saves you. I show up with my phone. I pull up my app. It says to do this. I'm going to do it. Maybe it's not going to be 110% today, but I have my plan. And because I have a plan, I at least will be able to execute something.
This
louder
is
for the people in the back.
Yeah.
It's amazing. Go ahead,
well,
Mike.
it's just good. Well, no, because that's what it is, right? Because that is my personal experience. Is that with the gym, it's always like, oh, you get really excited about something. For a while I was doing, and I was doing really well. Like I was doing starting strength for a while, and like
Yeah.
powerlifting, and I loved that. And got really
Mm-hmm.
into it, and then I stopped doing it, and then everything fell apart. And I say this because it's like, what can you do consistently is one thing I'm also hearing you not make the way you're describing the food plan. I mean, I think that a lot of people in this business, because of the nature of it, have a very tumultuous relationship with food, because of the pressures of how we're supposed to look, and also the physical demands, and also the emotional, insanity. And it really is almost finding something not sexy, right? It's like, it doesn't have to be the sexiest thing in the world,
Well, let me just stop you there. Like,
Please.
When it comes down to fitness, the whole industry, I mean, I'll say this as someone that's a part of it because I just want to be honest, but like the whole industry is built upon the nature that people don't want to accept that it's really that simple. And yes, the easiest of things are usually the most difficult, but as far as the raw bones of execution, it really is not difficult. It's just a matter of who's going to show up every day, be more into the process than consumed with the result.
Right.
And thus they're going to keep showing up because they're enjoying the process in some way. And just like you, like when you said you were on starting strength and you were loving it, and then you got out of routine a bit, when you're in the midst of it, it's clear as day you seeing the positive effect.
Yeah.
But when you fall off the train per se, it is tough to get back on. But if you can just tap into your data that you have on yourself,
right,
that you've already done this before,
right,
so there's no reason that you can't do it again. And it's just really a matter of that. Okay, I've been here before. I did fall off, but there's no reason I can't get back on. And I know how great I feel when I am on this.
Because what's interesting, I love about what you're saying too, is it really is that simple, and it really is that. And look, I'm all for pushing oneself, but like, what I really love about what you're saying is you have to start where you are as well. Like you can't, because where my impulse is when I'm good, or I'm gonna go to the gym, and it's extremes. It's like I'm gonna have an extreme diet. I'm gonna go from eating Taco Bell 3 times a day to just chicken and broccoli, because also we're all men here, even though Joshua's like, Joshua, I was joking, but it's like we're all men.
Even though Joshua's Joshua.
I'm just joking. But we're all men here. And so there is this element of like,
this is the part I hope it gets cut out, right? This is the part that you're
exactly.
talking about.
I look
You'd be
bad.
You'd be shocked, Joe. This will stay, believe it or not.
You just took a massive swing at Joshua.
We say worse to each other. Oh, this is the most tame episode we've ever had. We talk about all types of shit, Joe. But no, I don't care about my reputation. But anyway, no, that's not true. But anyway, what's interesting is
boy,
we're all men here, so it's like, and I say that because I'm not that it's a whatever. Sorry if somebody's offended out there, but it's like, we push ourselves. It's like when we're like, fuck, it's like I'm gonna get like, I'm gonna get into this. Like I want to go. And you're right. It really is as simple as show up, and it's not these
I think just to jump in, whether you're man, woman, identifying as whatever, like I think what I see from clients is that the pressure that you're speaking about is like looking at someone that they view as a 10. I'm not saying aesthetically, I'm just saying like maybe someone they look in the fitness facility and saying, oh, wow, they know what they're doing, or they're impressive, or blah, blah, blah. and what you were saying about like just knowing where you are and being okay with where you are, and let's just say that's a 1, meaning you haven't stepped foot in the gym ever or for a long time. You can't just expect or try to go to the 10. You just need to get to the 2. And then when you get to the 2, get to the 3. Like I say this a lot, like first you have to suck, and then you'll be bad. Then you'll be okay. Then you'll be good. Then you'll be great. But first you have to suck. Like you can't, you just, like when clients bring to me frustrations, like, what do you want? Like, do you want to be on point shoes your first day of ballet? Like, no, you have to suck. You have to learn your first position, look awkward in your first position, and go from there. And then you can maybe put the point shoes on.
Right.
Well, you're bringing up, what I would add on to that is that, and undoubtedly you're going to fall off at times. To this point, like you're going to get onto the tippy toes or whatever, on point. Tippy toes. That's the technical term for going on point.
Yeah, you're going to get on the tippy toes.
Yep. And then you're not going to be able to get on the tippy toes. But we brought this up before. About, and I want to come back to this because Mike, you were saying this about how you go into, you'll start rehearsals and Joe, I feel very confident you and I have had exchanges like this over the years where I'm like, well, I'm super slammed now, so I'm a little, we make these excuses. In short, we give ourselves reasons and give ourselves outs for why we can't do something. And side note to say, one of the things I love about Built for the Stage is Joe will ask you, what basically do you have available to you? Are you on tour? Actually, when I first started doing Built for the Stage, I was in Canada trying out Ain't Too Proud. So I had he basically was like, what kind of gym do you have access to? Right. Sometimes it might just be a set of dumbbells. Who the hell knows? What's my point? Can you speak to mindset and the consideration of quote unquote mental resilience when it comes to all of this, and how you can consider ways to build a healthy mindset with your overall fitness?
Yeah. First off, thank you for all these amazing praises. Everyone listening, I'm not sponsoring the podcast.
That's true.
Joshua is just being super sweet and kind. But yes, the mindset is actually like where we're at now as a society in America, at least. I think it's like a dangerous time as far as fitness or accomplishing goals is concerned. Because for the better and the right reasons, mental health and like not pushing through or not being resilient is kind of like a very hot topic.
Yes.
But I say it's problematic because I see, or my opinion is that it seems as though people are going, the hard direction of it being too much. Like nothing great was ever accomplished in comfort. There's a gazillion quotes about the diamond or about whatever else, the axe meaning sharpened. You have to go through something to be something. Yes. I'll just say it that way, I guess. So there is that fine line. So everyone listening, I do encourage you, like, hey, if you feel as though going to the gym is going to cause a mental breakdown right now, then let's not do it. It's not worth it. We're going to need breaks when we need breaks. But if it's just I'm feeling lethargic, or I had a bad audition, or I just don't want to do it, you're going to feel like that 80% of the time, right. Just throwing out a number there. But the majority of the time, because I would say I love working out, or I love fitness, but most of the time I don't want to do it at first. It's not until I actually begin. So our mindset Did you see those?
It's
Sparkles
happened
right?
twice.
Just flew-
Yes.
Whoever's listening, China loves you. Whoever's listening right now is
China loves you.
Yeah, China's loving what you're saying. No, whoever's making the fireworks happen. Yeah, no, yeah. Sorry.
is that well? Everyone watching, you know what I'm talking about. But if you're just listening, sorry to confuse you.
Yeah.
I thought I was maybe making magic hands.
Exactly.
And then
I
all
think
of a
it's
sudden
because you're
something
saying
was.
stuff that is true.
Yeah. So I also I know I'm just running in circles, not speaking 100% clearly, but journaling is very important to me and something that I push towards all of our clients that build for the stage. The power of writing something out and seeing where you were in a particular day and then being able to reference back to that on days that you need to see, oh, I've been here before and this is what happened and this is what worked and this is what didn't.
Yeah.
That's so fitness because so many times, like I said, the I don't feel like it is going to happen. But if you could look in your journal of had an amazing workout, set the tone for my entire day, had a great performance that when you start to see that written out over and over again, you start to believe that, okay, I need to make this a priority in my life.
What I love about what you're talking about is remembering, because who doesn't feel good after a workout? I mean, who really does? Unless it's you're you went really hard or some shit or you got hurt. Who doesn't feel good after physical activity? I mean, that's just how we're fucking wired. And but it's so easy to forget that. And I really dig what you're saying, that it's again, you just showing up and doing it, and per your point, doesn't have to be perfect, and just remembering how good it feels when you're done, and remembering how much better your life is when you are physically active, and you are. I really value that. Yeah, please.
Well, and I just want to lift up, and Mike, this is not to have a tangential conversation with our guest, but I just want to say what I love about what you're talking about is essentially tracking information, data. Mike, when we just did our first play together actually a couple months ago, and Mike, you were very much in process of tracking process, either pre and post show, to sort of have some way of going how did that process work for myself? And the tangential thought I'm having is essentially that relates to all of our work of essentially keeping some sort of journal, some sort of process for identifying what is going on in your world and what worked and what did not.
I love that, because normally I've heard people say this before, and you're the first person who's kind of made it actually make sense. I've heard people say journal after a workout, write, how do you feel? How do you think it went, or whatever, whatever sort of, but I never really saw it as oh no, I'm just in and out in terms of okay, what did I lift? What did I not? And the problem with that is there's no, there's a sports psychologist, this book called Finding Your Zone by Michael Lardon, which I recommend it to all actors. Michael Lardon, Lardon. But he talks about how when he works with athletes, he has them, they have the literal scorecard, which is how many, points did they score, were they a birdie, whatever the fuck. But then he has them build their own process scorecard of, these are some other questions, like how was my mindset lining up for the shot? Did I take the shot when I was ready? Shit like that, like basic questions. And what's making me think of now is, this is, I think, a big reason why I haven't, it's been hard to be consistent, because I don't have emotional attachments. I haven't taken the time after a workout to go to have a process scorecard. It's only based off, and you'll invariably plateau sometimes, with the workout. But if all you're tracking is numbers, if all you're tracking is how many set, did I go up 5 pounds this week or whatever the fuck, then you're removing, you're not in conversation with yourself, and you're not able to, per your point, able to call on those good memories and the good feedback you have after a workout, because all you're tracking is like cold hard numbers, which is important. I mean, that's cool. Like, there's nothing wrong with that, but it's more than just a cold thing to track in and out. It's got to be more than that for it to be like sustainable. That has to be a journey, and the journaling thing I think is really cool. I don't know if anything I'm saying makes sense.
Yeah. I think it's just being in tune with your relative perceived exertion. So your
Right.
your level of exertion at your best is this 10 out of 10. But when you're journaling, you realize on any given day, I'm going to give 10 out of 10, but it's going to look different.
Yes.
So, I journaled here. I had a fight with my parents, and it's caused huge turmoil in my family. My session, I did XYZ, and that's it. Then I'm looking back, I'm in another fight, or I have something else going on in my social network, and I'm gonna push off my training because mentally I'm just like I don't want to do it. But I have this data on what happened with my parents in the past.
Yeah.
Oh yeah, with my parents in the past, and I saw that, like, all right, my session was shit, but emotionally I said it felt better. So like you're saying,
Exactly.
like, you just have to have these things to fall back on that you've proven to yourself in the past that physical movement of some sort is going to benefit you.
I love that. I really love
If
that.
some of the, I realize, Joe, and that some of these questions we're asking might be kind of basic, but you have I really love your thoughts on these, so don't mind them, because I think some of our listeners will value them as well. So, because we're kind of speaking to this, but how does physical fitness, how does setting a plan and prioritizing it, in your opinion, affect someone's mental resilience and ability to sort of navigate the industry as a whole, full of exhaustion, I would argue trauma, rejection, insecurities? What role does it play?
Yeah, to me, they're the same thing. If you want to learn lessons on life in this theater career, you can learn a lot in fitness. One thing I love about training first thing in the morning is I love to train and tell myself, you just completed the toughest part of your entire day.
Yeah.
Yes, there's going to be stuff that comes about that might be stressful and anxiety inducing, but you just spent X amount of time under tension or under some type of discomfort where you wanted to stop, but you kept going. And that alone builds yourself a springboard for the rest of the day.
Yeah.
And you're sore, it's difficult, not everyone's doing it, but you keep showing up to the gym. So when I go to the audition, my heart is sore. I'm fatigued physically. I'm sick of being told no or not given the time of day. But you know what? I keep showing up.
Yeah.
Why? Because in fitness, I keep showing up. Or in other things in life, if you can just keep proving to yourself, hey, I can do hard things. Then when you're proving to yourself that in the fitness realm, it's going to carry over inevitably to your auditions.
Well, this is why so many high performers in all fields, I think about like the guy who works a 10-hour day at, or 12-hour day as an executive at a fucking, hedge fund, whatever the fuck. Those people are running in the mornings. Those people, a lot of times those people have work out. And it's because, and what I'm taking away from what you're saying too is like, it's because it trains you. It trains you for high stress environments, and it builds up your resiliency. It makes complete sense. This is kind of, if somebody is injured, let's say, or somebody is, I know you've kind of spoken to this, but if somebody's injured and has to take a step back, or somebody has really let themselves go in terms of like not going to the gym for a while, how would you encourage those people to, stay on track and take care of their injuries if they're injured, or not overexert themselves? Like what should they consider? How should they begin or continue if they're injured? Does this make sense?
Yeah, if you're injured, stay diligent with the physical therapy that you've been given, hopefully by someone that was treating you. And then on the things that aren't injured, focus on those as far as enhancing your training. So if it's a lower body injury,
Yeah.
you'll do your PT for your physical therapy for your lower body injury. And then you can still make your way to the fitness space and do some strength training for that. You can still work on shoulder mobility, opening up your thoracic, things like that. It's just a matter of, okay, what do I have in me today? And whether you're injured or not, that's kind of always the mindset is, where am I at today and what can I focus on to at least keep me moving forward?
That's great.
What have you learned the most about from working with, being a performer yourself, but then really committing to this world and learning about how these two worlds intersect? What have you learned the most about from working with so many actors, specifically preparing for long runs, and how is it informed Built for the Stage?
Yeah, I think what I find a lot is that the hardest workers in Built for the Stage are typically your most successful in the field.
Interesting. Wow.
It's not always the case, but just what we've been touching on, it all is transferable to other parts of life. So if this person is giving their 110% working with me, of course, the chances of them going above and beyond in their career is going to be there. So what I've learned as far as the longevity of a person in a show like on Broadway or a tour and our success fitness wise is always going to be communication. The more people are in touch with me, the more I'm able to guide them and be their support. And I think as actors, again, we're athletes, and all athletes have coaches. All athletes have a support system through a season. Or you could even consider yourself as, I'd say actors are most similar to either a fighter or a tennis player, or maybe a golfer, like these individual sports where, yeah, you're around other people, or maybe you're a part of a team, a quote unquote cast, but your longevity in your career really is just all revolved around yourself. And all of those people have something in common, which is a team, a coach, a physical therapist, a strategist, or some type of mental well-being, maybe their therapist. So that's the same thing with my clients that I train for a good amount of time, is that we're always in communication with each other about where they're at, what they need from me.
Yeah, Josh.
Let me just, I just have one follow-up question there. One of my problems, quote unquote, as a coach, when I work with artists myself with the work that we do, is I worry about them. And I worry about the ones who aren't communicative. And I worry about the ones who fall off, because a big part of our work is building plans. Do you experience that, Joe? This is just a personal question. Like, do you experience that? Do you fight the impulse to like follow up and make sure people are okay, knowing that they might be quote unquote working against themselves advertently or inadvertently?
Yeah, the ones that I know want the help and are just in a rut, I definitely want to reach out. But working with the people I have over 19 years, I'm 37 now, so 18-year-old to 37 is wow. But so anyways, been training people that long. There are people that unfortunately at a given time, they don't want the help. No matter how much you follow up or tell them give them the keys to the palace, they don't want to use them. And that's frustrating as well. But yeah, I used to struggle. 2020 was very hard, for obvious reasons, but having clients in the theater field, I was just the sounding board for one bad thing after the other.
Sure, of course.
Not complaining, but just like the reality was like, wow, just like messages flying in, and they're not necessarily about fitness. It's more like where they're at financially, or a member is ill, or I have to move. And that weighs on you as a coach for sure.
Just last two questions here. You know, in addition to, and we do want to talk about what working with Built for the Stage is like exactly what the process is. But before we get into that, just if somebody were to go, okay, in addition to, I think, look, because I know for me, what's really hard too is working. And I think you guys said this about the team thing. Working with people is hard. I'm somebody who wants to do everything on their own. And, this conversation and other things that made me realize, well, maybe that's not, the best. There's so many things. Why would I not utilize resources? This is not a pride thing. It's just like, it's just a practicality thing. But let's say somebody out there is a little stubborn and they don't want to necessarily have help at this point. They're not ready for it. What would you say sort of are the base things? And let's say we're talking about off season, just general foundation stuff. What would you recommend? Sort of like what are some basic routines they can start to build in, considerations in terms of being ready, physically ready? Like, where would somebody begin to do this? You mentioned potentially, 3 days maybe of lifting at the gym, squat, deadlift, overhead press or bench press or something. Some cardio, short, mid, long, maybe one of those a week. Is there anything else that yoga consistently, maybe daily or every other day or something? Am I hitting this on, or is there other sort of routines, whether it's waking up, whether it's sleep, whether it's whatever, that you think someone
gives 50 more examples?
Yeah,
like,
sorry.
Okay, so which?
I'm sorry.
No.
Yeah.
Yeah, anyone that's just starting out, it's really just starting. Keep starting. Every day, wake up, decide when the day before, already have scheduled when you're going to train the next day. I'm a big person on a schedule. Journaling, scheduling, writing things down is a great way to stay on track and stay committed. I said I was going to go to the gym at this time. It's now this time to go to the gym. Like, that's it. And then, like I said in the earlier part of the conversation, know where you're at, be okay with where you're at, and don't try to be the person next to you or the person behind you or in front of you. Just be yourself and do what you can do. And what you had said about not doing it alone, don't do it alone. Seek out a trainer, seek out someone that has experience, because if you're guessing, or if you're kind of doing something that works, then you'll kind of get. But if you do something that is well thought out, that is efficient, then your results will be efficient. They will be, they will.
No, that makes sense.
No, I was going to ask about just how people, Joe, can work with Built for the Stage. So what the process is, what's like the best journey? I know it's holistic and personalized, but what's the best way for someone to start that journey, and what would it look like?
Yeah, they just would go to builtforthestage.com and they would fill out a free trial form that would get them set up on the app to see what it's like to navigate the workouts, to see what it's like to get feedback from me and to chat with me on the app. And that's really the best way of experiencing it. And then as you go along in the trial, if you wanted to speak about your specific goals or just tap in to our conversation with any questions that you might have for me, then I'm there to happily answer.
Well, check it out. I mean, I hope this conversation, and again, what this wasn't the point of having Joe on. It wasn't about just Built for the Stage. It was about talking about sort of, meeting the demands of what it means to perform in specifically commercial theater for long runs, whether that's Broadway or the West End, Joe's new home. But Joe, we end every episode, just so you know, with something we call comfort food performances, which is a performance of just about any kind. It could be a singular performance, it could be a piece of work in its entirety that we love. In theory, comfort food performances means is that we'd come back to it time and time again. But we'd all love to name a favorite performance of ours, and I'll go first just to give you a sense of what we're talking about. I'll start with one. Last night, Michael, my partner, and I, we watched a movie I'd never seen before. Michael, you would love this movie called Old Boy. It's this,
I know Old Boy, of course.
Yeah, I had never seen.
Did you see the Korea? Is it Korean or you saw the Korean one?
Yeah,
so good.
Yeah, it is. It is really good. It was a bit of a psychological thriller in a lot of ways about a man who was trapped and then his vengeance. But it was really funny, really well done.
Well, they lock him like in a room for like 20 years or something, right?
15 years.
15 years, and he's just in a room, and then he goes out to like find the people who did it. And
vengeance.
Are you talking about that guy, the lead guy? He's
actually
great.
Actually, I'm talking about the whole movie in this instance. But yes, he was very. I'm giving the whole movie as my comfort food performance.
Very good.
But I thought it was great.
I'll go next just because it's on my. I love Sly Stallone. I think Sly. I love Sly. I think I have so much respect for him in terms of like just what he's done in his career and how he's self-made and whatever. So I would say Sly. I think one of my favorite Sly movies, I think Cliffhanger, actually, which is kind of it's not Rambo or Rocky, but I'm going to put that one out. Him and Cliffhanger is do you ever see that movie, Joe?
I have. I've seen almost every Sly Stallone movie.
I think, yeah.
Is there more of a motivational story than a guy being so low that he had to sell his dog, and then he was able to make it, and once he made it, he was able to buy his dog back. Like,
and everybody in Hollywood, when we were Rocky, they did not want him to they were like, we love the script, and he just was like, I'm in it. He's like, that's it. But Sly and Cliffhanger is just like, he's great. He's great in everything. John Lithgow in that movie is also just like ridiculous, just completely. Him and Sly get into like a fist fight, and it's like, John Lithgow, I don't think so, buddy. I don't think, but whatever. It's such a great movie. Great movie. Okay, Joe.
Okay.
What's yours, Joe?
Okay, so I'm naming a movie that like I just can always go back to for nostalgic reasons or whatever.
Yeah,
is this what
sure. Yeah, for sure.
I don't know if it's for nostalgic reasons, but I just watched A Star Is Born last week for the 100th time.
Which one?
I think their relationship and their chemistry on camera, Bradley Cooper and Lady Gaga, is just insane. Great. And the music they wrote for it, I loved it, and it's just such a gut-wrenching ending. And I think his character, we all can relate to, because I think we all are living our own struggles on the inside. And just like my heart breaks for that guy and the struggles he had with his father and brother, and just where it led him to as far as that goes. But yeah, any Bradley, I've been on a Bradley Cooper kick lately. Like, I love Burnt, this cooking movie about him and trying to get his Michelin star. Yeah, that's a great one. And he also just crushed Bernstein as well. Like, that was crazy.
So good.
I've got to see A Star Is Born. I only know the Judy Garland one. I still haven't seen Lady Gaga or Bradley Cooper, so I have to watch that.
You haven't seen it yet?
I haven't seen it.
I've only seen Judy Garland's.
Oh my, Joshua, you have to watch this tonight.
Okay, fair. Maybe that'll be our movie this evening. Joe, thank you so much. Really, it's an inspiring conversation, and I'm excited for folks to even consider half of what we talked about. So thank you so much for being here today.
Hey, thanks for tuning in to this episode of Creative Risk. If you've enjoyed, please don't forget to like, subscribe here on YouTube, follow our channel, or follow us on your favorite podcast app. A quick review on Apple Podcasts, like we said, would mean the world to us. We read them all, as I said. And if you want to go deeper, join our Patreon community starting at just $5 a month for exclusive content, motivation, and a supportive community. Check out patreon.com/Creative Risk Podcast, and we'll see you next time.